It's another edition of PENSDOWN, and today we have the august presence of one of the most notable figures in the media in Africa. He is my guest today. He is the Executive Director of Media Career Development Network, an organization that provides media career mentoring, coaching, and networking opportunities for journalists to maximize their potential. He is a journalist and media career development specialist, having served as managing editor, online and special publications of the Nation newspaper, Nigeria. With over 35 years meritorious experience in the profession, which earned him commendations for outstanding performances, the former Sunday editor of the Nation worked for various media organizations, including the Punch newspapers, where he was group news editor, city editor, and group political editor. He is a passionate media trainer and counselor. He has organized and facilitated various impactful media training programs for all categories of journalists in Nigeria and in Africa, which have enhanced the functionality and career prospects of participants. He lectures in online journalism and investigative reporting at the Nigeria Institute of Journalism, Lagos, and he has in the past served as adjunct lecturer at the Mass Communication Department of the University of Lagos, as well as a professional external examiner at the Nigerian Institute of Journalism. In recognition of his immense contribution to media career development and media practice in Nigeria, 4 media awards have been named after him. He is a decorated penman, a sought-after trainer cum coach, a prolific author of industry-relevant books, and a fellow of several international journalism opportunities. Mr. Lekan Otufodunrin is my guest today. I hope I got the pronunciation right.
Yes, I think so. It's very good. And like they
Thank you
say
very
in
much.
Ghana, Akwaba.
Wonderful, Akwaba. Truly honored to have you on PENSDOWN today.
Thank
You
you.
teach online journalism. That means you have some expertise also in on the digital aspects.
Yeah.
My first question to you: social media, how has this shaped the practice of journalism across Africa?
Well, thank you once again for this opportunity, and I really want to appreciate the work that you are doing, which is also providing journalists the ability, the opportunity to share their experience and insight. So the question is about social media.
Yes, sir.
I haven't been what you would call a traditional journalist over the years. When we started working, when there was no internet, not to talk of computer. You know, when I was in university, there was no computer.
Okay.
You know, but here we are, so much has changed. I think social media for me is complementary to journalism.
Okay.
But it has opened the gate. So we pride ourselves as being gatekeepers. But I think it has expanded the horizon and giving more people the opportunity to be involved in information sharing. I like to put the distinction between the fact that you are sharing information does not make you a journalist. But now more people can share information. And that also puts a pressure on the traditional media to understand that they're no longer competing with themselves. They're competing with anybody who can share information. And except we understand that, some of us who still think traditionally may be left out. People want information. They don't care where they get it.
Yes.
The only danger is that because those other people don't have understanding of the ethics of the profession, they share anything. But those of them who get it right, they become our main competitor. But more importantly, it has democratized information sharing to a large extent and redefined what journalism is beyond just news to the extent of content sharing, which is also information that people can use.
The birth of social media launched the journalism careers of millions untrained across the world, called citizen journalists. The popular terminology blogging also came out of this. In Africa, we have more successful and richer bloggers than journalists. Was the media really prepared to fully harness the potential of social media, or they were caught unawares?
I won't say they were caught unawares. I think we lived in denial, so to say. We saw the trend, it came, but we were thinking it was a fad that will go away. But unfortunately, technology is real, and it has, like I keep saying, it didn't catch us unaware. We saw it. We saw the trend. We, even up to now, some people still label the people in that space as non-professionals. We say they are not professional journalists. And like you have said rightly, we're in a time when traditional media is struggling and newcomers into the profession are making money. Not all of them are bad. There are some of them who indulge in unethical practices. But I dare say there are, even now you have professional journalists who have become bloggers, who have become social media influencers, who are disseminating information, who are sharing information, who are also understanding that it's not only about the story that you put out, it's about what you are able to do in that space, what kind of information. So it didn't catch us unawares. We saw it with our hands, but now we are trying to do the catch up. So many media houses, but unfortunately, I dare say that from some of the experience I have seen in some traditional media, we are not devoting enough resources to it. We still see it as a second-rate something. Even in some media organization, their online editors are seen like a second-rate editor. Whereas these are the people that do the job. I use my personal example. I used to be a Sunday editor, and this is something I have been across anything you could have done in traditional media. But I was made the online editor. Fortunately for me, my MD understand how it works. So I was a level editor like any other person. But I know in some other media organization where the online editor is subordinate to others. So I had to run my own newsroom. I don't wait for information to come to the general newsroom for me to get it. We have in our paper what we call information online first. So when you get that information, it must go to the online department first. If it's an exclusive story, you could keep. But if it's a general story, you cannot keep it because the platform that don't print newspapers, for example, we publish. So it is futile trying to play the catch-up. So like you have said, it's something that we need to wake up to that reality that, yes, there's a destruction of our industry. How to make the business model that will make us make some of the money that we need has changed from the old ones. So except we understand that. So this thing about there's no money in the media, yes, there's economic downturn. News is not food that people want to spend a lot of money more, but people are still making legitimate money because of their now redefining of what media operation is. They are now more multimedia in the sense that you are no longer, so if you publish a newspaper, you are no longer just a newspaper, you are now a media company that is sharing content. So if you don't have that understanding, you will still use your staff like you used to do. I'm speaking to you from a conference. I'm also at a workshop we are talking about. So what is the future of the media? So how do you ensure that you use your staff, you deploy them in a way that they can serve various purposes? How do you go to an assignment? You get the normal text story, you get the video, you get the audio, you are thinking of podcasts, you are even turning about how to turn your reporters to experts. You are looking for information that can be distilled, that can answer what is in the mind of the people. And I do admit that it's more difficult to be a journalist these days, but you need to understand it if you want to profit from the resources that are available.
Are journalists not being needlessly hampered in their line of duty by ethical injunctions, especially in this age where information is on the second? Is that not the reason journalists seem to be lagging behind in this jet age? Let me use that street term.
Well, ethics remain the baseline for practice of proper journalism because we cannot sacrifice ethics just also because we want to make money. Credibility is important. Trust is also very, very important. And even in some of the places where we are copying some of these things, a large number of them still maintain the ethics.
Yes.
I understand the problem about speed and accuracy. For me, it's about speed and accuracy. So while you are trying to confirm that story, the blogger goes ahead. But what we have seen over a period of time is that the citizens begin to understand that there's a place where you can get the good information. In my country, there are some websites, if you mention them, people say, I trust this website. Yeah. But there's some that they are so quick to publish, people say, you can't be too sure. So you see, you go there, you see the story, then you go to a traditional website to be confirmed. And we also have, so like I'm saying, we need to begin to understand that traditional journalists also move online. So in Nigeria, for example, there are websites that are managed by people who used to work in the normal newsroom, and they practice the profession. When they make mistake, they admit it, they correct it. So although ethics is not hampering, ethics is demanding for us best practice, which we cannot sacrifice because we also want to make. Because in the long run, integrity matters and trust matters. So it should not be an hindrance. For those who don't abide by it, it catches up with them eventually. Because people are able to understand that these people are trying to do what we call clickbaits. They are trying to deceive the people, and it doesn't add up at the end. We have seen traditional media that make money. We have seen people who abide by ethics that make money. So it should not be a discouragement to want to not to abide by the ethics.
At what age did you discover the journalist in you, or the burden potential for journalism in you?
Well, talk about the discovering. So I grew up with my father sort of set me up, so to say, because even though he himself did not attend the university, but the kind of education they had back then was enough, even at secondary school level, to be very literate. So our houses were full of newspapers. I had to buy newspapers for him, and in the process of reading newspapers, I read these newspapers. And so that urge to want to be like the people I'm reading started. And when I was in the secondary school, in my what I call the HSC, after secondary school, we have the HSC. I was the library prefect, and I was made the editor of the house journal, even back then. So it set me up. There was no debating whether I wanted to read mass comm or become journalist. And so I cut into it, and good enough, I went to University of Lagos, where the study also prepared us effectively. I did internship. And so my journey right from secondary school to become journalist had been something that had progressively improved over the years.
Journalism in Ghana is experiencing a lot of attrition. So many trained, highly qualified professionals are abandoning the ship. Some are going into corporate communications. Others are turning into just anything that will give them survival. Where you sit, especially within your immediate environment in Nigeria, is that the case? If it is, what is accounting for this trend?
Well, the situation is not too different from what you are painting from Ghana. What we are seeing is that where there's a disruption, the economic problem is also complicating the dilemma of the media. And because of that, some media houses are indirectly shutting down. Some that are not shutting down are not paying well. Some are even defaulting. So people are no longer finding journalism as attractive as it should be. And so people are abandoning ship, like you are saying. They are going to other things, but there are still people who still remain. And what is happening is that we're also trying to reinvent. We are saying, so how do you continue? Because even when you want to go to another industry, it may not be available. You may have, your age might have passed the level they are looking for.
That's
So
right.
how do you? So for me, now, like I run Media Career Development Network,
Mm,
one of my things that I do is to help journalists to transit,
mm,
to understand that other side that many of them don't know, to see how they can use their skill, which is very, very important. The advantage of being journalists over the years is that we have acquired much knowledge that we need to
mm,
begin. We are in an age of information. It's an information economy now.
yeah.
So somebody sits on Twitter and is an authority on an issue.
Mm,
I'll give you two instances. On the Nigerian Twitter space, there's a guy called Akoroko Doctor.
okay.
If you want anything about health,
Mm,
that is somebody that is so reliable. There are people, so but these are bits that we covered over the years.
mm,
We covered in the normal way. But
yeah.
how do we turn this into something that we can continue to do? That is the understanding that many journalists need to understand. Because even when you want to move, there may be no space for you.
Mm,
And even when you want to move, you need to be as digitally compliant, even on that other side. So for some of us, there is no escaping journalism, but it's in
mm,
how do you practice journalism in another phase? Now, after all this thing I'm doing, I do training for people.
mm,
I do consultancy using my editorial skill. I do proofreading for people at a cost.
yeah.
Unfortunately, many of us don't also know how to price our skill.
Mm,
All we have been trained over the years to like just do the story and move on. But the media is no longer just that straightforward. So how do you, as somebody who can edit a script, charge appropriately? I am mastering that. Even charging is something I don't understand too well, but I'm beginning to understand because
mm,
people need those skills. Somebody wants you to transcribe a 1 hour interview. You have
mm,
to pay for it. So if we deploy some of our skill,
mm,
uh, our challenge will not be as much as we are imagining. Because
mm,
even people, I mean, these days people talk about content writing.
mm.
It's big deal. I see
Yes.
engineers, I see pharmacists, I see doctors who are
Mm,
great content writers, who
yeah.
can be better great content writers than a journalist. So it's just for us to begin to see the wider perspective, the changes that are coming, and see
Mm,
how we can plug in so that we are not totally displaced in the ecosystem of media and communication, which is our forte over a period of time. But the trouble is real.
mm,
So it means that, for example, if a media house runs before traditionally, they need to recapitulate how they do. How do you turn and we need to learn from other countries. You read New York Times where they are selling, they are selling how to cook this, how to do they are selling knowledge.
yeah.
They are doing seminars and workshops. They are
Mm,
turning their journalists into experts.
mm,
You know, it's something that we all need to like begin to learn. I
mm,
mean, there are many things I do. When I became an online editor, there are things I
mm,
didn't even know how to do, but my children taught me. So
mm,
it's a process of unlearning what we have known and learning new things and using
mm,
technology. We know people who have YouTube accounts,
yeah.
you know, and they are making some substantial amount. So how do you be a broadcast journalist for 30 years? You no longer have a job, and you don't say you don't have a job. When people who have never been broadcasters are running YouTube channels.
Mm,
And I also think that we need to collaborate. Part of the problem is that many of us who are
mm,
journalists, we are carrying the analog mentality into the digital space. Everybody is publishing his own website, and we are struggling. Whereas some of us need to collaborate so that we can have stronger platforms and be
mm,
able to reduce the stress. So you are not the reporter, the website manager, you are all this kind of. So that level of trust will help us to be able to synergize and be able to make some appreciable income that can keep
mm,
us going. But like I've said, we'll be able to determine what expertise do we have, who is paying for what, how
mm,
much can I earn for this, because this is real business. This is also about survival, which we
mm.
need to begin to understand.
What is your assessment of the quality of journalism in Africa using Nigeria as the case study?
Well, I think the quality of journalism is great. That, I mean, long time ago, you talk about journalists who, I mean, people who didn't have degrees and things like that. Today, the average journalist has a first, a second degree. There are even journalists who have PhDs and things like that. Although that is not only what you need, but I think journalism is great. The articulation is much better. The training, that there are awesome resources for training. That's one thing that I also want to point out. You know, that's why journalists who are not online savvy are missing out about the global picture. So some of them are limiting themselves to what they know. But today, there are so many trainings available, not only in countries, by many international organizations and local ones. The question is, how are we plugging into this? How are we collaborating? How are we maximizing those opportunities? So journalism is great, and there's more demand for informed journalism because the audience is more sophisticated more than ever before. So, and for you to continue to operate in that space, you must also be able to provide them, because they're able to read more between the lines. Some of the information you don't have, they have. So they're able to even compare what you are serving. So I think journalism it has improved tremendously in terms of personnel. The thing is for us to be able to have that commensurate understanding of technology, to be able to deploy it, to be able to provide the information, the education, and the entertainment that people want.
You are a mentor, a trainer, and a coach. Share with us, what are some of the professional dilemmas that entry-level and mid-level professionals approach you with?
Okay, thank you. And so one of the reasons why I started media career development long even when I was working as a journalist many years ago was that I realized that training is not prioritized in the media. So we don't pay enough attention. There's no what I will call structured continuous training model like you have in some other profession. In some other profession, you get REIT certified. So, but we do these things over the years. So the part of the dilemma is that, again, there's no orientation in some media houses. They just hire people. There's no like, okay, let's do orientation for this person, like you have when people are hired in some other industry. So because of that, some of them come into the profession. Some of them did not read communication or journalism, which is another trend. I don't have any problem with people being hired, but I have a problem when you don't give that person that professional understanding. Somebody can be a great writer, but if he doesn't understand journalism, he won't understand when something is it's not it's violating the press laws.
Yeah,
There are information you have that you cannot share, even when you have them.
that's right.
There's a way you write that you are also not offensive and things like that. Those are the kind of training that. So because people don't have that understanding, they get easily confused. Even with them, so you begin to see many young people come to the profession, and because some media houses are also not properly structured, we are so consumed about people working that we are not paying attention to their welfare. We are not paying attention to the condition of service. We think those are secondary, but those are the environment that makes, and for especially for young people who are coming, they have some level of expectation that some media houses are not able to make. So some of them come and they just leave. So we're losing young people who should reinforce the industry. We're losing them. So some of them also come with problem of what does the future like. They've had so many negative stories about journalism.
Yeah.
They don't want to end up like some of the veterans that they are saying. They don't want to be popular and be poor. Those are the things that give them concern. So in my work, I'm trying my best to provide what I call some orientation.
Okay.
So I'm able to paint for them to say, look, if you are this, if you enter, this is somebody that you can emulate. I'm giving them what I will call, because most of the training that are also available are editorial skill based.
Okay.
So training in how to write economics, how to write investigative reporting, how to do this. But how about training in terms of how workplaces are structured? How you human relationship, and so many basic things that the condition of service that helps them to really want to stay on.
Yeah.
not to jump at the earliest opportunity of becoming public relations, because we lose our good hands to those industry. And unfortunately, when some of them get to that place, they get frustrated because having been used to like that upbeat movement, discover that those place doesn't offer them. So the challenges have to do with what kind of environment do we provide for them, enabling environment for journalists to stay on. So because they are worried, they need information, they need counseling, they need editors who are sensitive to um, their feelings, who are emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
You know, the old practice of journalism is that just get the story done. I don't care how you get it done. But these days, the young person is asking, why are you doing this to me? I mean, the average reporter is asking a question that nobody will ever dare ask you some years ago.
Yeah.
And some editors cannot stand it,
Mm.
you know. So, and again, they are also finding the problem of that some of the media are not as technology driven.
Mm.
So some editors will still insist that you must come to the office every day. Some of these young people don't understand why this will happen when they can do some of this their work without necessarily coming.
Mm.
When there are deliverables to meet, if there is a set standard. So, for example, we have a situation where we say, look, everything you have to come to the office, but you can do some of these things. It doesn't take away as long. Some of us are freelance organizations outside Africa. We
Yeah.
do this work, we deliver, and the
Yeah.
standards are even higher
Mm.
than what happens. So we need to look at that model, and we need to
Mm.
help people to stay on. We need to help people. We need to encourage diversity. So when we have in media houses that don't have enough women in some key positions, we need to be concerned. We need
Mm.
to make it friendly so that the person, because a woman will at some point get married, have children, that should not be a disincentive to also occupy good position. You
Yeah.
know, so there are strong environmental factors that we need to
Mm.
address, and that's what I try to address. Some
Mm.
of the things they can't say to the editor, they're able to say to me, and I'm able to advise them.
Mm.
So those are some of the concerns that I get.
What stand out as your most challenging assignments when you were in active practice? Either one of them or a set of them.
Well, I'm trying to recollect, but I remember some touch points when,
Mm.
so for example, I joined Punch in May 1987,
Okay.
and my first job was to be a state correspondent outside Lagos in
Mm.
Ogun State, which is neighboring to Lagos. For about 3, 4 years, that was what I was doing. And typically, I was thrown to the job. I was a fresh graduate,
Mm.
you know, and I had to cover a whole state, you
Wow.
know, report everything, report education, report sports, report the governor, and everything. So the challenge was, how do you, as a young person, cover a whole state? You know, there were times I got into trouble, you know, and one of the most dramatic one I will never forget was that there was a day when my father was marking his birthday, and where he was marking the birthday is still in the same Ogun State where I was covering, but it's far off. You know,
Mm.
like maybe 150 kilometers or something like that.
Okay.
And those are days when there was no technology, there was no internet phone. So we
Yeah.
went, for example, we went to cover. No, I went home, and my friends came to celebrate with us, and they returned to the state capital. Unfortunately for me, the governor of the state died. No,
Oh.
a former governor
Okay.
died,
Okay.
and the government issued a statement. There was no way somebody could inform me that this had happened. But
Mm.
luckily for me, one of my friends who was coming for my father's birthday had information, returned, and went to send the story for me. I wasn't aware. The next day, when I heard that the former governor had died, I imagine I've lost my job. Because how do I justify missing that story? But luckily
Mm.
for me, I got back to the capital city and found the newspaper with the story on our paper with my name. And by the time I called my editor, I said, well, you're lucky you have your job. By now, you would have been a former staff, former reporter with the Punch. But your friend saved you. You know, it's something that I always remember and I appreciate. But talk of challenges, like I've said, there were times when you are dispirited in terms of you are not getting commensurate income. You are
Yes.
not able to pay some bills.
Mm.
And in fact, that got me trying to experiment at a point. I left the Punch in 1999 to be on my own. I wanted to be
Mm.
on my own. So to say, that was when I wanted to run the Media Career Development Network and
Mm.
another group I was running, Journalists for Christ. But unfortunately, I didn't have enough preparation. So
Mm.
I worked in Punch 87 to 99. But between 99 and I think 2003, 4, I work in 4 places because each time I entered that place, the environment was not conducive.
Mm.
The environment I was coming from Punch, I'd worked for more than 12 years where I got my salary, everything was proper. I was living, I was paid my entitlement. But I moved into the place 1 month on, they are looking for salary. I can't be using my money to be substituting your work. So I had to expand. But luckily for me, eventually I joined the nation
Mm.
where I also worked for another 13, 14 years. It was
Mm.
much stable. So sometimes part of the challenge has been how do you get commensurate
Mm.
income
Mm.
to match the effort you are putting into what you are doing? How
Mm.
do you get an environment that nurtures you, that is concerned about your future? So that is why, because of some of those things, I have also witnessed, and I have seen some senior colleagues end up. That is why I'm doing what I am doing to say, look, let's understand the situation. What can we do?
Mm.
I was sharing with some people that I do proofreading for people. It was something that people will do for free. But I've learned to know how to. So I tell people, for example, if you want me to write stories for you, 3 stories for free, and I say, look, I can do one for you for free. If you want another one, you pay for it.
Mm.
So I'm not being difficult. I'm also trying to. So we also need to understand negotiation skill because
Yes.
I am lucky that I work at some point where salaries and everything, but I know colleagues who work for months without getting paid. And
Mm.
even though it's not affecting me, indirectly, it's something that I don't find very funny. And I'm also not happy that sometimes the image of journalism is such that people say, look, if you want to make money, journalism is only. We're not talking about money, we're talking about even making the basics, which
Mm.
is very, very important because
Yeah.
everything is not about money. It's about personal fulfillment.
Mm.
I know many people would like to hang on journalism, but they have to run for their life. I have a young colleague. He was a journalist, a fantastic one, an award-winning journalist. Got employed in a communication as a communication consultant in an international NGO. He's earning a lot of money, but he wants to come back to journalism. And I'm at
Mm.
a cross about how to advise him to say, look, you have your children's bill to pay. The media cannot pay you what they are paying you there, but he still wants to be a journalist. So we need media environment that can make us be happy what we are doing and be able to live an average life and pay our bills. Because
Mm.
at home, people will forget that they want you to be able to live up to expectation. So it
Yeah.
can be very frustrating sometimes,
Mm.
and
Mm.
I've had my own share of frustrations in between that had made me. But luckily, this is what I've signed up to do. Now
Mm.
I'm reinventing what I'm doing. I still write, I still do freelance writing for people, for
Okay.
organizations. I still
Mm.
do that. But now I do training and I'm going back to school. I teach a journalism school. I make them see the bigger picture. I make
Mm.
them see sometimes what their lecturers are not telling them. Because
Mm.
some lecturers are also demarketing journalism by saying, there's no money there, there's no future there. But they need to let them see best practice. There are people who have excelled. There are people who are happy being journalists because they are not seeing themselves as local journalists. They are seeing themselves as a global player.
Mm.
So you are in Nigeria, you are in Ghana, you are still a part of the global this thing, and journalism opportunities are global.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how many times while in active practice were you approached with anything monetary or material to compromise the facts of any story you were doing?
Well, over the years, again, sometimes this thing is something that you understand. When I was a much younger journalist,
Mm.
those issues, you are an everyday
Yeah.
reporter. You go to beats, there are
Mm.
money. At some point, it didn't really make any difference to you, you know. But as I grew, I begin
Mm.
to ask myself, this is not something that is ethical. Again, that's part of the problem. Some of the problem we also have in Nigeria is that there's ethics of the profession, but People are not happy on it. So I have seen journalists these days, for example, who practice and they don't know there is code of ethics. So when you're asking them, they're evaluating. So for me, along the line, there have been instances when I graduated from understanding that being financially rewarded. So because sometimes people tell you that this is not a bribe, I'm appreciating you. So where do you draw the line between appreciation and bribe?
Yeah.
So I can't deny that at some point, maybe at some point I've been approached. At some time I've taken this thing thinking that, well, it's just an appreciation. But as I grew in the profession, I begin to draw lines and say, look, this is not, there are better ways of making money. There are things that I can do that can earn me legitimacy. So these days, we're talking about multiple streams of income. So because part of the thing, we debate ethics. People tell me, for example, so when you talk about ethics and you are not paying me, how do you want me to be ethical? So those are the dilemmas that have come up. But for some of us who have been fortunate to work in places where all those things are, so the temptations are less. You're able to assert yourself. I've also worked in places that have zero tolerance for you getting involved in some of these things. So the temptation, you don't even go near them. But let's be open to ourselves to say, look, when I was much younger, yes, I could have been compromised, knowingly or unknowingly. But as I grew over a period, I begin to say, look, this is not something I want to do. I want to end up well. Because some of these people who are trying to compromise you, they're not better than you. They're just prepared to be on the other side. So if you have a sense of self-worth, you begin to know, when to begin to stay away from some of these things, or to say, look, this is what I stand for. This is what I can do officially. Now, thankfully, these days, media organizations are getting wiser. Some of those things that people compromise people for, they have monetized them. So sometimes some of those media houses, look, if you want picture here, this is how much you are going to pay. Although that is also causing an ethical problem where you are not able to distinguish between sponsored content and editorial content, which is a big problem.
I want to find this out from you as a follow-up. What is your take on the proverbial brown envelope?
Well, so it's follow-up. So brown envelope, like we know, it's when people put money, and jokingly people say it's no longer brown. These days can be wired. I remember I was in Ghana for one training one time, and people were what, because someone said at some point they even call it solidarity in Ghana at some point.
Yes, it is called, in fact, it is called Soli, and that is the shortened form of solidarity.
So it was a very interesting meeting where journalists from across West Africa, and they have different names for it. My attitude is that it's part of what we're talking about. When people are influenced, compromised, and there are different shapes of it. So some people say, look, I'm just giving you money for transport. But some people give you money to say, look, this is the money, this is how I want the story. Unfortunately, and this is my advice to even PR people, some of the reporters that are giving money don't have the capacity to influence those stories. Some of those stories may not even get used. So you give a reporter a story, money, he may get to the newspaper and the editor says this is not going to be used. So straight to your question, my attitude is that it is not something that it's something that compromises your work. And so every journalist who wants to, in the long term, be respectable, because the people who give this money sometimes don't respect journalists.
Yes.
They don't respect. They know that they can buy the journalists. So that is where some of these things become very offensive. And people should know at one point when to stay away from some of these things. But I will, on the other side, that's why we are saying media owners should do what they are supposed to do. Although there are journalists who are well paid and still indulge in this practice. It has become endemic. But we have less of that temptation when we provide basic amenities, commensurate pay. Ethics is not, because somebody said that where we copy this ethics is based on all things being equal. I was at a training facilitated by some American consultant, And the reporter stood up and said, for example, if I work in a company where I have not been paid for months, and I go to an assignment and they give me 5,000 naira, should I take? The response the American person gave was that I have never worked in a situation where I have never been paid. I don't understand what it means not to be paid. So the ethics is based on that everybody will do his own bit.
Yeah.
The employer will pay salaries as and when due, we pay entitlement and things like that. So it shuts the door for you to be looking forward to brown envelope or white envelope or wired payments these days, which it comes on. And strongly, I can say that in my experience, I have seen that people who do their best to be ethical, there's a reward for being ethical. I see people making career progress. I see people who are ethical who get rewarded in bigger ways than the money that would have been taken. Which is very, and that's the message you are saying, that look, don't just turn yourself into some people even demand for it. Some people even blackmail people, organizations, to collect this money, even when they don't have the capacity to do what they are asking for. So straightforward, blind envelope is unethical because the code says you should not solicit or accept payment for doing your editorial assignment.
If we should go back into time, 40 years, are you still going to choose journalism?
So I've had this question asked. The other way people have asked me is to say, if you are not a journalist, what else would you have been? I struggle to answer that question. And some people say, okay, maybe you'll be a teacher now that you're even doing training. Perhaps. But truly, I'm proud to be a journalist. I'm happy I'm a journalist because journalism has been, for me, I consider it a God-ordained profession in the sense that this is something that I've been able to contribute my quota to making the society a better place. In my career as a journalist, I've written reports that have changed people's lives, that have impacted people's life. I'm happy because journalism is a necessary profession. It was even at that training that I said came to Ghana, that was a Liberian journalist who said journalism is not just a procedure, it's also a necessary profession because we need journalists to be able to hold government accountable. And that is very, very crucial. Without journalism, without communication, democracy cannot thrive. And that's a very, very important. So I appreciate the opportunity to be a journalist, and I will want to be a journalist even have to think over it. And even now that I know so much, I'll probably be able to know how to even practice better than ever before. So I'm glad. One thing that has also helped me, which is that I have done my best to access training. And that's one counsel I give to people. The first time I traveled out of Nigeria was in 1988. Okay. It was a Thompson Foundation in the UK. I'd worked for 10 years. I'd never gone for a training, and here I applied for training. Because sometimes too many journalists become too cynical to see good. And I think that's also a big problem. We are trained to be skeptical. But when you are cynical, you don't see too much good. Even when there are opportunities, you will not see it. It was at a point when an NGO was bringing newsletter to our office. In that newsletter, it was about the media rights that they were defending. But they had some pages about media training. But some journalists will not even look at those people. They say, look, these people they want to use us. But from that same newsletter, I saw an opportunity to apply for 3 months on expenses paid in UK. I applied and I went. And that's what I am doing now. What I'm doing now is a replica of what I learned back then because I went to a training. Thompson Foundation trains journalists. Now I'm running a replica of that organization in Nigeria. And beyond that, I'm open to learning. I'm worried that so many senior journalists don't take advantage. So they are too busy. You invite an editor to a meeting. He said, no, I have to edit my paper. You have to edit your paper. You have deputies. We must learn to delegate. We must know when we should go outside and learn from the outside world Because at some point you will leave that position and you need to do new things. So that's one thing that has helped me. So even now that people say I'm in retirement, so to say, I do a lot. Some of those things I have learned. People invite me to do facilitation for different programs. But that is also because I'm available. I apply for solution journalism grants. I get training from people who are even much my junior, because journalism has also changed. I mean, one of the best quotes I always talk about, the publisher of Sahara, there's a publication in Nigeria called Sahara Reporters.
Yeah.
The publisher is not originally a journalist, and even now he tells you that he's not a journalist, but he's a social crusader. He said something at training. He said, journalism is not changing. It has changed. It is you that has not changed. And that is the thing that I think is critical. So many of us are still living in the past. Journalism is not the kind of thing. So there are so many aspects of it that we need to master. Things that technology can make easy, And like I said, we should not do one man, one website, copy and paste, and say we are publishing. The people who are making money from online publication are not doing that. They understand that there's what we call optimization. There's what we call engagement. It's not just on the website. It's about ensuring that it's unique content, it's premium content. You're also understanding that there are keywords. So a lot of learning is necessary for the journalists of old to be able to thrive in this new environment.
Oh, okay. A lot of politically exposed persons own or are setting up media houses. The political ownership of the media is on the rise. Do we have a reason to worry?
Yes, my first answer is that we have reasons to worry. But the problem I'm asking myself, what is the alternative? Unfortunately, publishing is not it's not where you make money.
Yeah.
So it costs a lot to publish. I would have been happier if non-politicians invest money in that sector. But unfortunately, so I have the experience of having worked, when I work in Punch. Punch is an independent newspaper.
Okay.
I work in the Nation. Nation is owned by a politician.
Okay.
And so I've had these two experience. So what I tell people is that to some extent, not to every extent, sometimes the influence of ownership is exaggerated.
Okay.
To the extent that, yes, the politician who establishes has an agenda and he will fulfill his agenda. But within that his own platform, you are still able to achieve your own agenda. So I work in a newspaper owned by a politician, and I ask people, say, look, so in this newspaper, how does his political ownership affect my ability to write about business, about sports, about health, about education? Largely, it has nothing to do. It is when it becomes his own, it affects him directly or to some extent politics. So because even in independent owned platforms, there are still agendas that are not open. And that is the truth. There are economic interests, there are personal interests. But in the political ownership, you know the interests, you know the line mines critically. But this other one is not very clear. So like I said, unless people who have independent sources of funding are ready to invest in that non-profitable sector, we are going to be cutting. So who provides the platform to work? So I ask people in my own country, why is Dangote not investing in newspaper? Why is the man who owns Glo not investing in newspaper? It doesn't bring them money like cement or like telecom or whatever. The politicians who invest their money in politics, they are spending their money. So to some extent, they deserve an acknowledgement, but it becomes an hindrance But I'm also very positive that sometimes there is diversity. In Nigeria, we know 3, 4, 5 different politicians that own some major newspaper. So what you can't do against one in one, you can do in the other. So the diversity help. So I'm not I'm worried, but I see the bigger picture of the diversity that it provides. I see the opportunity to do good journalism even within those space, except when you veer into politics. So if you have that kind of large-hearted, we understand that yes, it's a limitation, but we have not lost everything. But it will be better when other people, when people who have independent funding. These days, many newspapers, many journalists depend on donor funding. And we are still complaining that donors have the agenda. Yes, they have the agenda, but what do you do when you can't fund this operation? But I'm very open because sometimes I think we journalists we are sometimes unnecessarily suspicious. A man brings money and says, "Look, I'm funding health reporting." I ask myself, so what is the agenda? Is the agenda he wants health reporting? And you are doing health reporting. From the work I do now, many of the investigative studies that are done in Nigeria are not funded by their media organization. They don't have the money to fund it. Even some of the best newspapers. The NGOs get money. There's a Ford Foundation, there's a MacArthur Foundation. They fund some of these things. So what you're unable to do, even your media house that is independent, these organizations give you money. So we must find a way to utilize what's available to achieve our ultimate goal. And so it's not as bad as sometimes as we imagine. But like we said, it will be better when we have non-politicians establish newspaper. People need to see that it's a major contribution to owning media platform so that we can shield ourselves from political influence. Nobody sets up something to work against himself. I tell journalism students, we talk about freedom of the press. Excellent. But even in your university, can you write against your VC? You cannot. Or your head of department. So you begin to see that the limitations are in phases wherever you are working. So that's the dilemma that we face.
Yeah. So
when ordinary person, okay, go on.
Do you support calls for the licensing of journalists?
Well, it's a very tough. I don't even see how it's going to work. So what we are talking about is self-regulation.
Okay.
The problem is who is going to license. If the licensing is by the journalists themselves, that the Nigerian Union of Journalists, talk of certificate, that kind of thing. Well, but if government is going to license, it's going to be abused. You can decide who wants to practice. So, but it is also because sometimes journalists are not doing enough self-regulation that they open doors for this effort. So in Nigeria, for example, we have the Nigerian Press Council. There have been a lot of fought and bang. Journalists are arguing nobody should regulate them, but we are not even regulating ourselves. So in recent times, there's a lot of effort to say, look, let's set up our internal mechanism for maybe registration. The laws are there. The problem is that we violate it. For example, in Nigeria, under the law, what should happen is that for you to be a journalist, you must have a certification as a journalist. But even if you don't have a certification, you must have worked for some numbers of years and whatever and things like that. But the person who employs doesn't even care. He just hires anybody. Or today there are radio stations, private radios all over the place. They hire all manner of people. Somebody who doesn't understand maybe broadcasting ethics and things like that. So if somebody says you are at a radio interview, the person is asking you a question and answering himself, is arguing with you. So there are so many things that are not proper that has been happening. So that's why people are concerned. So we need a lot of self-regulation, internal mechanism to show that, look, we understand that there's an abuse. So we open room for external regulation when we don't do our own. Maybe the word is not licensing. I don't know what else we call it, registration or whatever. but it should not be done by government. When government does it, they will apply the stick and carrot. They can decide when they can shut down. I mean, as
mm,
we speak, to for example, there's an issue in Nigeria. Uh, BBC Africa
yeah.
did a documentary on terrorism.
In
Daily
Zamfara.
Trust, yes, Daily
Mm,
Trust Television did another one,
mm,
and the Minister of Information came out and said that those things were not in good light and that they are going to be penalized. Today, the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission had fined Daily Trust 5 million naira
mm,
that the documentary they did violated some code of whatever, But we are waiting to see how they are going to penalize BBC. Maybe they are
mm.
going to use the Twitter approach where they ban them. I don't know whether that's going to happen. So that's why it's dangerous to entrust government to do regulation. But beyond
Mm,
that, we must regulate ourselves by ensuring that we don't give room. If we know the law, we must know how to avoid those things that can
mm.
put us in line, so that we have a case even when we are being attacked, we can speak up and fault their approach.
For the years you were in active practice, what golden memories can you recall?
Hmm. Golden memories. So many of them. So
Mm,
many of them in terms of, like I said, in those early years when I was Punch correspondent in Abeokuta, it was awesome for me as a young person having to report, those things I learned in school. I
mm,
had early opportunity to be able to do great journalism, interview top people. Just this
mm,
evening, I was telling some people about how when I was a reporter, the late MK Abiola,
mm,
the great man in Nigeria who was elected president but was not allowed to become president. I mean, I had access to people who matter, and I was
mm.
able to contribute to writing. For me, what gives me each time I remember some of those things, I have a book called Journalism of My Life, in which I
Okay.
collect some of the things that I was privileged to do. I mean, I was telling somebody that there was a story we did when I was Sunday editor at The Nation. There was this story. It was something about how some people were dying in the UK without anybody being traced to them. They were dying,
Mm,
no family and things like that. And I
mm,
read it in a foreign newspaper. It was a series about people who are just disappearing and whatever. And I saw a Nigerian name. And I was like,
mm,
this is a Nigerian name. So this person had died in this thing. We rewrote that story from a Nigerian angle. And lo and behold, his family have been looking for him. They didn't know that he has died. That
mm,
was how they got to know.
mm,
So we've done stories about how people have needs,
mm.
and our stories have changed policies. So those are the things that excites me about
Yeah.
journalism and the
Mm,
opportunity to also travel. I mean, through journalism, I've seen the world, gone everywhere I would have wanted
mm,
to go. It has opened doors for me. It has allowed me to contribute to informed discussions and all those things. So those are the things that make me appreciate that journalism is something that, for whatever challenges that we've had, it's a great opportunity. And I know today, people who study even things that are not communication wants to be journalists.
mm,
Unfortunately, some of us who are journalists don't even appreciate how important our position is.
mm,
So for me, I have great memories and it's a continuous thing. And that's why
mm,
today I invest a lot in doing training. I'm helping the young persons to see the the beauty of being journalists, the possibility of being able to effect the change that
mm,
you're asking for, which the
mm.
ordinary person may not be. You may be a medical doctor, you have informed position. If the media does not amplify it, you may not get
Yeah.
that so for me, those are the great memories. And like I said, I mean,
Mm,
traveling to UK for 3 months with meeting colleagues, discussing about journalism in our country excites me a lot. And
mm,
so those are things that are very unforgettable.
mm. I hosted the publisher of the Trumpet Media Group in the UK, Femi
Okay.
Okutubo, and
Okay,
he
I know
told
him.
me, that journalists in the UK are much more revered than those in Africa. Where have we missed it as journalists in Africa, which is why the respect and the honor due us is never given?
Well, I think it's sometimes it has to do with our environment or our system. So where he's talking about, it's not only journalists that are revered, everybody is revered, so to say. Everybody has his own place in the system. Even here, I think journalists are revered, although there are also people who don't, unfortunately, because of the way some of us behave, journalists are feared, they are not respected to some extent. They have the capacity to do things, so people fear us, So, and because some of us also operate below standard, we open ourselves to people to disrespect us. And that's why your courage is very, very important. Your courage, your attitude, your professional practice matter. If you carry yourself like a professional, people will respect you, And you start from basic things. Even how you dress is important. I was long years ago, I went for a social event. It was a major event in the state. It was like an award in the evening for the state. The chairman of our press association in the state, he dressed very, very well. So he was dressed in a complete, what we call a full buba agbada in Nigeria. He walked past the protocol and he went where the VIPs were sitting. And the protocol people were debating. Someone said, that guy's a journalist. Someone said, no, he can't be a journalist. The way he's dressed, he can't be a journalist. He said, he has in his head how he thinks a journalist is dressed. But when somebody went to ask him, say, look, are you a journalist? He said, yes. He said, but this he said, how are the people here different from where I am? What makes you think I should go and sit somewhere? So sometimes we also need to demand this thing even when people don't revere us. And sometimes it's because people have false impression, people have negative impression. People don't also know enough about our role. So they undermine. And so it's also important that we demand for the respect that we are due to. But that will be guaranteed when we also respect ourselves. When we don't make ourselves cheap in a way that people think I can pay off that person. Sometimes I tell people, some of the people who are governors in Nigeria, some of them did not graduate before me. They are not graduates. Some of them are even younger in age. So why should I see myself as a lesser person because I'm a journalist? I'm proud to be a journalist. I mean, I remember that Professor Wole Soyinka, the Nobel laureate, he once granted an interview and said, "Thank God he was not a journalist because he actually wrote an interview to be a journalist, but it was not taken because back then because they said he didn't write news story, he wrote normal news story in the art form. So he missed the opportunity of it. But he said, well, he thanked God that he's not a journalist, and without saying so, it could mean that maybe he would not have become a Nobel laureate. But I know one or two people who started as journalists who became Nobel laureates. So journalism is not an advantage. So if you have that personal conviction, it will help us in how we carry ourselves. It will help us in how we approach people. It will help us to respect ourselves by ensuring that we do the right things so that people cannot easily fault us. So those are the things that make people not revere us as much as we. But sometimes there's a blanket condemnation, which is not right. It's not every journalist that operates at that level of disrespect. It's because, like in my local language, a few people can make you disrespect more people because you just think this is how all of them are. So that's the thing that journalists must also understand, that they need to carry themselves in a way that they must earn that respect. People must say, look, this person, even the way you ask questions, you are informed, you are intelligent, and you carry yourself. It's very, very important.
So you teach investigative journalism.
Yeah.
That is a brand of journalism which goes on a collision course with society's criminal elements and the iniquitous. Sometimes there is the use of unconventional methods to unmask criminal elements and nefarious deals that have been done to the detriment of the greater society. How are you psyching up the minds of the next set of investigative journalists you are training to accept that they are venturing into where angels fear to tread. So they should be prepared for the challenges ahead.
Well, okay, so in journalism school, I've had even young people say, look, what are the dangers? They say, we heard that you can be killed and things like that. So where the first thing I tell them that where every profession has its own hazards.
Yeah.
So it's not peculiar to journalists. The soldiers will go to situation, the medical doctor is exposed to risk. Everybody has his own risk.
The auditor,
So
the
for
accountant.
accountant things, so like that.
Yeah.
So what I tell them is that, well, number one, not everybody will get to practice investigative journalism. It's a higher form of journalism in the sense that people who are assigned are people who already have the capacity to do so. But when you do so, like you are saying, you must follow some pattern. You must know what to do. These days we're even talking about safety. The safety of journalists is also very, very important. So no story is worth your life. We say that. We want you to dig deep, but no story is worth your life. You must know at what point to pull back. You must know when you can still do it. So we preach to people like, you need, an investigation journalist does not mean that you are getting some document from inside the state house. It starts from the little things. There is no water in the community. Who is supposed to have provided this water? Who was awarded the contract? You know, basic things, you know, that you can investigate that will not put you in line of danger. But there are bigger ones. I mean, for example, we say in Nigeria that the policemen take money at checkpoints. And somebody wanted to do investigate journalism. What he did was he took an undocumented car and drove it from Abuja to Lagos. And every point, people stop him, they try to collect money from him. You know, he deliberately gave them those money, but he was filming them all along. That's not the same one when you have to go to some more dangerous situation. So when we tell them that there are reality check for practicing even investigative journalism, there are things that you must do. There are things that you can't do. Like you said, you can also use unethical. You must also, except in very impossible situation, you must not obtain information in a way that is very compromising. So you can't steal document, for example, and say that you are doing investigative journalism.
Yeah.
You know. So those are the issues that we try to break it down for them. But investigative journalism is important. It must reveal something. And you must get all the parties involved, which is very, very important. You must get all the parties involved. If you can't get them there, it's not like a one-sided story. So we are letting them do this. There are sometimes people will come for you after publishing, and your greatest defense is truth. You know, where they can easily fall to, you open yourself to abuses of attack. You know, that is a problem. But by and large, and we also show them templates, samples of what has been done, so that they can learn from those things that people have done over time. Because when they don't have models to follow, you know, it becomes a problem. So the thing is, we don't want to scare them. We want them to understand that yes, you can do investigation, but do it right. Follow the right sign and know when to pull back, know when to suspend. You know, you are going to a place to investigate. Do the security mapping of the area. Is it safe? Are you following somebody monitoring your movement and things like that? Don't say you just want to do it because you want to do it. If you get killed in that process, nobody's going to read your story. You know, it doesn't mean that you're a coward. You know, but it can be very risky. But not all investigative journalism is risky, but some can really be very, very risky. But again, like I said, today technology makes a lot of things possible that was not possible before. Some of the documents that we are looking for, they are safely on some website without us knowing. There are some archives that we can access without sneaking to somebody's compound to try and get documents or things like that. You know, that information that's not available in Nigeria or Ghana, you can get it from UN. You know, so those are the things you must begin to understand various means of extracting information without putting yourself in line of danger.
Mm.
But we must do investigative journalism, which will help hold government accountable. Because when they know that people are trying to get them in Nigeria, there was this story done by there's a guy called Sayo Shoyombo,
Mm-hmm.
young, almost investigative journalist in Nigeria. You
Yeah.
know, he had to get himself arrested and
Mm.
be locked up to depict this situation in um,
In
in
the
prison.
prisons, yes.
Yes, that was a very dangerous one, but he was lucky he got out before his lead was broken.
Mm.
So it can be very dangerous, but it's a sacrifice that we make because we need to also do some of those things. We need to unearth some of those things that people in government or authorities are doing that need to be exposed so that they will give the society their dues.
My final question. Would you encourage your child or a relative to take to journalism?
I'm smiling because, well, so I have 4 children.
Okay.
3 of them are already graduates.
Oh,
Uh, none
great.
of them is a journalist.
Mm.
Um, the first one read history. He wanted to
Mm.
be a lawyer,
Mm.
but today is a fashion designer.
Okay.
Uh, my daughter, the second one, she's the one that I thought would be a journalist,
Okay.
but she ended up being an accountant.
Wow.
She's an auditor. But she's right. It's a very funny. My third child read estate management,
Mm.
no, quantity survey,
Okay.
but he's a fashion designer.
Wow.
So, but the beauty of all of them is that when, like the first one,
Mm.
when he writes about his business,
Mm.
people tell me that this guy has journalism in him, so to say, but he's not practicing. I wish one of them was,
Mm.
uh, but none of them is a journalist.
Mm.
I would have done,
Mm.
but luckily I have extended relatives who
Okay.
have become
Mm.
journalists. And I don't think I'm a bad model for them to want to be journalists. I mean, I have done journalism; they've seen it.
Mm.
It's something that I'm proud of. They're also proud of me being journalist. Sometimes people, sometimes say, "Look, we saw you on TV. We saw you doing this. We saw your byline." And things like that. So
Mm.
I will want them because, like I said, I'm encouraging other people, so I don't see any problem. But it's too late for my 3 children. The third one, the fourth one, who is about entering the university, is already doing content writing and things like that, although he wants to read computer science.
Mm.
you know. So I see some streak of writing here and there, but
Mm.
not the So, but like I tell people, journalism is something that is really great,
Yeah.
and people who didn't read communication are coming to it. One
Mm.
of the disturbing, I don't know whether this happens in Ghana, is that increasingly we are seeing people who go to journalism school and don't end up being journalists.
That's a fact. It's happening here.
It's disturbing. But we see people who are not trained journalists who come to journalism and are thriving.
Yes.
Some of the best student journalists in Nigeria are not mass comm or journalism students.
Mm.
So we are also beginning to say, is there anything wrong in the training that they are getting?
Mm.
So why is it that somebody who didn't study journalism, you know, are passionate to want to be journalists, and yet those who go to school? So even it's also we need to begin to moderate the narrative.
Okay.
People need to see the full picture. So it's not every journalist that is poor.
Mm.
It's not every journalist that is corrupt.
Yeah.
There are things that people do. There are opportunities
Mm.
that you can access.
Mm.
There are grants, there are fellowships, there are training opportunities. These days, like we said, we are talking about multiple streams of income.
Yeah.
If we learn all those ones, it will not be a disservice to, I wrote an article. I said, don't tell me I can't make money in journalism. People
Wow.
say, if you want to make money, don't come to journalism. Money is not the ultimate factor, but I think I should earn enough to make me happy, and it should not be impossible. If
Yeah.
our Again, one last point I want to make is that
Mm.
part of the problem with the media is not only money. Sometimes about
Mm.
management.
Okay.
Sometimes management of resources. I have seen media organizations in Nigeria that had so much money, but they went down. So sometimes it's a management. It's also about how we also grow our leaders in the industry. So many people are fantastic reporters. They don't necessarily make good editors, but we just promote people in those positions. Somebody said you lose a bad reporter, you get a bad manager. So which is very, very, so the fact that somebody is a brilliant reporter, well, does not mean he will be a good MD of a newspaper house or radio station. And we can also help that when we provide continuous training. By the time people move from being reporters to be like head of desk, they need training beyond reporting training. By the time they become editor, they need management training. They need to understand the business of journalism. If they don't have those things, they end up mismanaging some of those things. So sometimes it's not about money alone. And like we're saying, our media managers need to go to business schools. They need to see templates. They need to learn from other sectors. We're asking for transparency from other sectors. We are not as transparent as that. The sectors we are reporting, they do training, they grow their personnel. But how much of that are we doing? So if we don't do much of that, we keep talking about problem in the media. It's not only about money, it's also about know-how, which is very, very important.
I'll pull the brakes here.
Thank you.
This has been an exciting edition of PENSDOWN. Too many take-home points. I have had the honor of a very senior colleague. He's a trainer, a coach, a mentor to so many journalists across Africa. Lekan Otufodunrin.
Thank you. And like I said, thank you for the good work that you are doing. The first time I saw PENSDOWN, interestingly, my wife studied mass communication, but she's not a journalist. She's in the teaching community. So she tells me that they do PENSDOWN in the teaching profession, where when you are signing out, when you are retiring, you call it PENSDOWN. So when I saw it, I was like, this is another PENSDOWN. But it's good because what you are doing is documenting things that people coming after can learn from, even people who are dead. We don't celebrate ourselves, like I was saying. We need to celebrate ourselves. Because when we celebrate ourselves, the society will begin to even appreciate us. They see that we are as learned as they are. Some people see a reporter. They don't know that that reporter is a graduate. They don't know that that reporter even has maybe better certificate than they have.
And so indeed, sitting on this program, I have heard some of the most harrowing accounts. There is a former TV newscaster for Ghana State Broadcaster, Ghana Television. He was running commentary on live television for a national event when doctors were making frantic efforts to get his consent for a CS for the wife. He couldn't respond to the call, so they lost the baby. Some are paying the ultimate price, actually, for the kind of work they do through the kind. And the thinking behind the name PENSDOWN, the pen is the tool of the journalists. Now, it is only on this platform that the journalist is no longer the reporter or presenter, but the newsmaker. So here, they drop their regular working tools, and then they talk to us as newsmakers. That is why I call it PENSDOWN. And we are seeking to bring conversations worth the time of people. And it's been exciting so far. We've had some from the UK, US, Nigeria. We've had some from Cameroon, Canada, and the rest. And we are still moving on. So, sir, we are very grateful. Truly honored.
Thank you and well done.
Right.
I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. This has been PENSDOWN. We'll be back next time with another edition where we'll have another colleague join us to talk about their journalism journey. Thanks for being with us. Bye.